Well, good morning. Look at that. You see someone come on stage and you're like, oh, we'll finish our conversations now. So well behaved. Good morning. How are we all? Are we good and glad to be in church this morning? Over the last few months, we've been on this journey, and we're still on this journey of prepare, putting Christ back in the center of our lives, ensuring that He has our focus, He has our attention, to continue cleaning and mending our nets, keeping them in order, making sure the priority is right in our lives. And Carl shared with us a few weeks ago that we believe as a church, it is time to once again go fishing, to once again go on mission. So just for a moment, let's pop into our passage in Luke 5 and see where Jesus is telling us to go fishing. In Luke 5, it says this: one day, as Jesus was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, the people were crowding around him and listening to the word of God. He saw at the water's edge 2 boats left there by the fishermen who were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from shore. Then he sat down and taught the people from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch." Simon answered, "Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I'll let down the nets." When he had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, "Go away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man." For he and all his companions were astonished at the catch of fish they had taken. And so were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Simon's partners. Then Jesus said to Simon, "Don't be afraid. From now on, you will fish for people." So they pulled their boats up on shore, left everything, and followed him. What a passage. What a story. It's full of encouragement, challenging, obedience, faith, trust, the more, fishing, people, mission. There's so much in it. But I just want for a moment to pause and go, where is Jesus telling us to go fishing? It starts by saying, you notice the boats on the water's edge. And as the team's spoken on the last few months, that speaks to the preparation, the cleaning and mending of our nets, getting our lives in order. He then got into one of the boats and he asked them to put out a little from shore, and he sat down and he taught the people. And this is where we sit and we learn and we gather and we listen to the voice of Jesus. And then when he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch." Where they'd stopped the boat to teach from wasn't the place where they were going to fish from. I've noticed the catch of fish. They had to notice to catch the fish. They had to go out into deep water. They had to go out where the fish were. They had to move from where they'd learned, from where they'd prepared, from where they'd gathered, from where they'd sat and listened to Jesus, then to go out and start fishing. I don't often title my messages, but this morning I've called it Fishing in the Shallows. Now let's pause here for a moment. And just as I think about the very literal meaning of the word fishing, I'll let you in on a secret. I don't like it. It's awful when I stop and think about it. Now, I don't know if there might be other people with us this morning, maybe online, and you are other non-fisher people. You're like, no, the process of fishing? No. And let me just tell you why. Now, there's a lot of waiting in fishing. It's boring. You've got to sit there, maybe with your rod, maybe you throw the nets in, and you sit and you wait. Now, I'm working on it, but I'm not, proud to say, but I'm not a patient person by nature. Mum always told me to have patience, and I never really, anyway. But fishing can feel like you're just getting nowhere. And then if something bites, you feel that nibble, and you begin to wind it in. And then you've got to let it out again. And then you wind it in. And then you let it out again. You're wearing the fish in and out. And it's exhausting. So not only have I had to wait for a really long time, but now it's tiring and putting energy that is draining me. And then you're just about to get it into the boat. You know, you can see it, and someone's got the net ready, and the hook comes loose, and the fish just swims away. It's full of disappointments. Now, I will say the last part of the process, I will admit it gets worse. Actually, before it gets better, it gets worse. Because if you actually land a fish, then you have to deal with it. Ugh. It's slimy and gross. You have to scale it and gut it. And the last part of the process I can do, I can eat it. I'm good at that. I can cook it. Give me the fish, I'll cook it and eat it. I enjoy that part. And so when Jesus says at the end of that passage, don't be afraid, from now on you will fish for people, I went, thank you, Jesus. I can work with people. I know people. I am a person. I come into contact with people all day, every day. I don't understand how all of them think, but I understand a little bit of their hopes and their dreams, their doubts and their fears, what they are scared of in this world. I go through some of the same experiences as them, and I go, people. Jesus, I can go on the mission field with people. Fishing sounds awful, but people. I love people. Right. Aren't you grateful that Jesus said, now we will go and fish for people? People just like us. Right. But once Jesus had finished speaking, he said, let's go out into deep water and catch some fish. So as we move from this place of prepare to a posture of fishing, going on mission again, I sense that there are people who have got comfortable in the shallows. And Jesus is saying, let's go out into the deep water. Let's go out where the people are. Maybe you've been sat in church for a long time. Maybe it's been a short time. Maybe you've recently just joined us online and you're going, there aren't many people around me that don't know about Jesus. I haven't really caught many people. I haven't really been able to share with people about the good news that I carry, the hope that I have within me. I wonder if there are people who are trying to fish in the shallows, who are trying to tell people of the message of Jesus to people who are already sat gathered hearing the message. And don't get me wrong, it's not that we don't talk about it. We don't just stop gathering. It's not that we don't talk about Jesus with people in our lives who already know the message. We gather together to encourage and lift one another up that we can go out again. But the people who don't yet know Jesus or haven't heard the message of Jesus, maybe they're not sat here with us. Maybe they're out in deeper water. What if we need to go out a little deeper? Go out to where the people are. I love that our church, we love the community we're in. We love the communities we're in. We have youth workers in local schools. We run after school program and breakfast club, Red Frogs ministry, going out into deep water to people who don't yet know the hope and love of Jesus. One of our youth workers wrote a few months ago a blog, and I want to read a little part of it to you. She wrote this: I know logically that many of the problems the kids that I'm working with are facing are out of my control. Abuse, bullying, unstable home lives. Some of the stories I've heard and the disclosures they have made to me have turned my view of the world upside down. So it can be a real challenge to not carry these on my shoulders. It's no secret that the mental health of our rangatahi, that is our children, is in a terrible state. I've had children as young as 8 years old tell me they want to die. I've had a 7-year-old sob in my arms as they ask me why nobody loves her. Occurrences like that take a toll. The kids I work with have been through a lot in the last year. When I first sat and read that, I sat with tears streaming down my face, not just because it breaks my heart, the situations that these young people are in, but I can give names to those young people. I know their parents. I know their siblings. I know this lack of hope that they have. But as a church, we support and we empower and we employ people to go into these schools, to care for these young people, to go out where it's a little deeper, to where the hurt and the broken of humanity is, to love and care for these children, to pray for them, to carry them. Last week, Joe shared that 20 kids across both locations had made a decision to follow Jesus and put him at the center of our lives. And some of those kids were kids we had met in community. See, going out into the world can seem like a scary thing. Can seem like it'll be tiring and exhausting. Seems like it'll take some more effort. And it will. But we carry the message of Jesus with us. In 2 Kings, there's a story of Samaria who's been besieged. And the Armenians have set up camp just a wee way away. And they're going to lay siege to the city, and there's no hope for them. They're really without food, they're without hope. There's nothing left. And it says in 2 Kings, now there were 4 men with leprosy at the entrance to the city gate. They said to each other, why stay here until we die? If we say we'll go into the city, the famine is there and we'll die. And if we stay here, we will die. So let's go over to the camp of the Armenians and surrender. And if they spare us, we live. And if they kill us, then we die. At dusk, they got up and went to the camp of the Armenians. When they reached the edge of the camp, no one was there. For the Lord had caused the Armenians to hear the sound of chariots, the horses and great armies, so that they said to one another, look, the king of Israel has hired the Hittite army and the Egyptians to attack us. So they got up and fled in the dusk and abandoned their tents and their horses and their donkeys. They left the camp and they ran for their lives. See, God had gone before them. The men who had leprosy reached the edge of the camp, entered one of the tents and ate and drank. They took gold and silver and clothes and they went off and hid them. They returned and entered another tent and took some things from it and hid them. In this moment, when they've gone into this city, into this place where the Armenians had abandoned, their lives had changed forever. All of a sudden, they had resources, they had food that they had never had before. They were outcasts, lepers who sat at the edge of the city. And all of a sudden, they had all the riches they could ever dream of. But the next verse took my attention. Then they said to each other, what we're doing is not right. This is a day of good news, and we are keeping it to ourselves. If we wait until daylight, punishment will overtake us. Let's go at once and report this to the royal palace. So they called out to the city gatekeepers and told them. News quickly spread to the king, and they were able to go and they took over that entire city that the Armenians had set up. But the lepers, they'd been in a place where they had resource and things that they'd never had before. Their whole lives had changed. Jesus does that for us. When we first meet him, our lives can change. We all of a sudden are filled with a hope, with a purpose. We have value and worth. It is Jesus who came for us, who died on a cross for us, that we might have life in him. Everything changes. But what we're doing is not right. This day is good news and we are keeping it to ourselves. We need to go out into deep water. Stop holding the message that we have for ourselves and take it out to people who so desperately need it. So they went back and they told the king, they told the gatekeepers. It quickly spread throughout the city, and because of it, the whole city saw freedom. If I'm sat in church, I can hear a message, inspiring and encouraging me to go out and share the message of Christ with people. if I immediately throw my net out while I'm still sat in church, I'm only ever going to reach people who are already hearing the message. It's like I'm fishing in the shallows. So where is a little deeper? Maybe our workplace, or university, social media, our schools, your kids' school, the board you work on, the team you play social sport for or coach, the doctor you go to, the supermarket you shop at. Maybe throw your net out a little deeper to a place where people have not yet heard. A few weeks ago, I got a new set of headphones. Now, I love listening to music. I often listen to podcasts and all sorts of things. And I've got these new ones on. They've got a great sound. And I was about to go out and do some grocery shopping. And so I had them out and I was in the car, had a great playlist on. And just as I was about to go into the supermarket, I just felt this prompt from God to take off my headphones. And I say that I felt it was a prompt from God because the way I think about it is that God placed a thought in my mind that I didn't put there. And I know I didn't put it there because I was really enjoying my playlist. And I didn't want to take off my headphones. And so I went, okay, if I leave my headphones on, what am I saying to people? Well, I'm saying I'm a little bit busy and I don't really have time to stop and I actually don't want to be interrupted. And I went, that's not really what I want to say to people. And so I took my headphones off and I walked into the supermarket. And when I first walked in, through those clatter gates, you walk through and it goes, you know the ones. As soon as I walked in, they went click, 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 click. And there's a security guard there. Now, I often say hello to all kinds of people. So it's not unusual for me to say, good morning, how was your day? And he goes, it's actually been a bit of a rough day. Now, that's not a normal response for people. Most people go, good, thanks, and you move on. But he had, it's actually been a bit of a rough day. Now, I was in the awkward position where I just walked in. I hadn't committed to stopping to walking him, so I was walking, hello, I always talked, and I'm stopping. And I had to walk back. All of a sudden, it interrupted my supermarket shop. And I walked up to him. And he goes, how was your day? I said, I've actually had an all right morning. I've been working today. It's been pretty good, thanks. I said, hey, look, I hope you have a really great rest of your day. And I hope by the end of today, you can say that you've had an excellent day. He thanked me and I turned and I walked away. Now, I didn't stop and share the message and the hope and the message of Jesus with him. I didn't stop and pray for him in his situation. Maybe I could have. But I just felt that there was that small prompt from God to take off your headphones. And he was completely shocked that I had even said hello to him. But in that small moment, something of a connection had been made. Now, every time I go into that supermarket, he wants to stop and talk, which is great. Because I can stop for a minute and say hello. I can tell him about how good my day has been or how much I've struggled today, how much joy I have in my life, what I've been up to working in our community this week. I can simply say hello. Now, that supermarket takes me a long time to get around because I know 3 of the checkout people, I know the manager, and I know the security guard now. So it takes a little bit longer for me to get my groceries done. But I think it's taking that moment and going, I'll throw my net out a little further. I'm going to stop and I'm going to talk to someone. I'm going to engage with someone that I wouldn't normally engage with. I'm just going to stop and say hello. That genuine, how are you? I'm sure there are so many stories sat in this room of people who'd pushed out from the comfort of the shallows and seen the faithfulness of God in the more that passage speaks of. I can see why we'd want to fish in the shallows. There's something appealing about it. It's known and it's safe. You can see the bottom and you're not far from shore if something should go wrong. Someone is teaching and we just get to sit and listen and learn. And there's proximity to Jesus. He's in the boat with us. But it's not the shallows that Jesus is calling us out into. We have to put our trust in him. All of our knowing in his hands. Put all our past experiences, when they'd said, we've tried this before and it's not worked, we're putting our trust back in him. Saying, Jesus, if you call me, here are my past experiences. I don't understand it, but I'll do it. And put out into deep water. Share with those whose response we don't yet know. Boldly invite someone to know more about Jesus. Maybe to come to church for the first time or to come again. Maybe to give a pathway book to. And Jesus promises he'll still be with us. No, Jesus didn't get out of the boat when he sent them out deeper. He remained with them as they went out to catch fish. If we briefly look at the passage of the Good Samaritan, a story so many of you in this room will know, about a man who was walking from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he was ambushed, attacked, and left for dead on the side of the road. And a Pharisee's asking the question of Jesus, what's the most important? But he knows the answer. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So to be clever, he goes, well, who's my neighbor then? Who is it that I should be kind to? Who is it that I should love with this love that God's given us? And Jesus tells the story of the man who's been beaten and left on the side of the road. And a priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came to where the man was and saw him and took pity of him. It says that he stopped. He took care of him. He cleaned his wound. See, if a priest had stopped, wouldn't have been surprising. If a Levite had stopped, would have been totally acceptable and much easier for the people gathered to understand. But instead, a Samaritan stopped. Someone hated and despised by the people who were listening. You can just imagine the people around Jesus going, wrong answer. Oh, that's uncomfortable. Nah, shouldn't have said that. That's not popular. But Jesus was saying the message is for everyone. Even those you don't always like, those you don't get along with sometimes, the message is for them. The Samaritan stopped. He was neither a respected leader or a layperson, but a hated foreigner. The Samaritan went out of his way, went above and beyond. Society has said that the Samaritan should have just walked past. It was completely justified to go, not my place, not my person, I'll just keep walking. That's what society is telling me to do. He's going, no, I'll go out of my way. I'll go and show this person who is worthy of time and respect and value at the expense of my own comfort. Instead of just walking past, I'll stop. On the shore and in the shallows, we've listened and responded to Jesus. And then have we obediently gone out where he's called us? Gone out into maybe the uncomfortable or the intimidating. Out to where the people are. To go out into the deeper water can mean not yelling the things that society is telling us to yell and shout and stand up for. But because of Christ, I'm willing to stand and say what he says. Jesus called me to go, therefore I'm going, because Christ went all the way for me. Jesus didn't just come and teach us how to live a perfect life. He didn't just come and show us how to live. He came and he went all the way. He went to the cross, taking all of our sin, all of our wrongdoing, all of the mistakes that we make. Because he knew the people that he was coming to teach and to share weren't already just sat in temples, weren't already sat in churches, but the message was for everyone, for all time. He was beaten, mocked, but people were worth it for him. Jesus died so that we could be rescued and saved, that you and I could have a relationship with him. You know, sometimes when we go out, it can feel a little bit like fishing can. Sometimes it can feel like we're getting nowhere. Sometimes it can feel tiring, maybe a bit exhausting. There'll be disappointments of people who let us down. But Jesus says to never give up, to push in and push out, to give it all to him, to listen to his voice, to be obedient to where he is calling us to go, to keep praying, God, your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, to hold on to hope, to keep sharing the message, to keep stopping and saying hello to people. There will be disappointments, but nothing is wasted in God. Push out a little deeper. Stop fishing in the shallows. Reach people where they're at. See, the message we carry is too important to keep to ourselves or to stay sat in the shallows. This is a day of good news, and we are keeping it to ourselves. Let us go at once and report this to the palace. Let's go and tell everyone about it. The deep water can require us to trust God more. It requires us to sometimes walk into situations that we don't know, into unknown places. Like the men with leprosy, they were risking everything going to check out the city. But that is where our faith meets Jesus and the miraculous catch can happen. It might require us to speak into conversations that we really don't know how they'll go, but tell them about the hope that we have in Jesus. Today, would you choose to go out a little deeper? Would you choose again to place your trust in God to where he is calling you to go? Would you put your feet on the waves, the unknown, perhaps the slightly scary, and know that God is on your side? And where he calls you, if you're obedient, there will be a catch. And the disciples' response at the end of this passage was not just a full catch, but they left everything and followed Jesus. So I'm going to invite the band to come back up. I pray that as you trust his leading, his voice and his directions, you would not just see your life full of people wanting to know more about Jesus, but your response to him would again be one where you give your life to him. That you would give everything to him and you would follow Jesus. God, I thank you that you are God. God, that you came for all of us. You sent your son that we might all have a relationship with you. God, as we've been through the season of prepare, and as we continue to walk in the season of prepare, putting you and keeping you at the center of our lives. God, I pray as we've sat and we've listened, as we've drawn near to who you are, God, that we would then go back out to where people are. That you would surround each of our lives, you would draw our attention to people in our lives who don't yet know who you are. That we would be bold enough to go out into deeper water. We would raise our voice in obedience to what you have called us to do. We would be unafraid of having conversations that we don't maybe know all the answers to, but we would put you back in the center. That many people would come to know who you are. That there would be a great catch of people. And God, that people would put their hope and their trust in you. We thank you that you go with us. You don't send us out alone, but your Spirit comes with us. God, help us to stop fishing in the shallows. In Jesus' name.